Hello, first grade, and welcome back for another lesson in math. This time, we're going to change things up a bit. Do you remember at yesterday's lesson, we talked about measuring with our counting cubes and comparing lengths, which one was longer, which one was shorter. Well, today we're going to be measuring something as well, but today we're going to be measuring using a different kind of tool. I'll give you a clue with this warm-up question. Which is longer, an hour or a minute? Okay, it might have been pretty easy. Which is longer, a day or a week? Which is longer, 3 weeks or a month? So today, do you have a guesstimate about what kind of measuring we're going to be doing today? And we can't measure it using counting cubes. We have to measure it using a different kind of tool. And so for today's lesson, you need to have your toolkit, and in your toolkit, you need to take out your clock. I know your clock probably doesn't look like my clock. Your clock is a white square clock. But I didn't want to use that small one. I wanted to have one that was bigger, and you might remember this clock from kindergarten. So we're going to practice with our clock today. And what kind of a clock is this one? Do you remember? Is it an analog clock or a digital clock? Right, it's an analog clock, right? Analog clocks have numbers and hands that move around, right? And a digital clock has numbers that change on the clock. Probably like the kind you have in your bedroom to wake you up in the morning, or one that might be on mom or dad's watch, their iWatch, right? Their Apple Watch, digital. So today though, we're going to work with an analog clock. And do you remember what this big hand is called on the clock? Right, it's called the minute hand, right? It counts the minutes. And how many minutes are on the clock? I know it's kind of confusing because I only see big numbers. So are there 12 minutes on the clock? No, that counts the hours, right? So if I count each one of these little tags on the clock, I would count around, and I would count 60, right? 60 minutes on the clock. And this small hand is called the hour hand, right? And it counts around each time the minute hand goes around the clock. Look what happens to the hour hand, right? It takes 60 minutes to go around to get to the next hour, correct? So on your clock, I'd like you to set your clock that you have, and the hands on your clock don't move like the hands on my clock. On your clock, you need to move each hand individually, right? So on your clock, I'd like you to set it to show me 1 o'clock. Can you do that? Use your clock to show me 1 o'clock. And so if my clock was at 1 o'clock, it might look like this, right? And what would be the next hour after 1 o'clock? You're right, it would be 2 o'clock. And how many minutes would it take to get to 2 o'clock? You're right, it has to go around 60 minutes until we get to 2 o'clock. So today we're going to practice with that, and I included a link that you can download if you want to practice just a cut and paste with some hours on the clock. And if you cannot print it, then maybe you can just draw a clock, you know, a circle, and try your best to draw a clock. I can give you a really quick demonstration about how I like, whoa, there goes my desk again. A really quick demonstration about how I like to draw a clock so that it turns out pretty close almost every time. So I'm going to get my piece of paper and let me tack it up here for you so that I can show you how to do a clock. And maybe you can try with me with a blank piece of paper and a pencil. So I have my paper hanging here, And let me get a marker that I can use that you might be able to see, because sometimes I have markers here and it's hard to see. So let me pick my desk up. I'm using my marker bin right now for my tabletop. So, all right, so I have a marker here, and I start with a really big circle, okay? Can you see that? I know my marker's about ready to run out. I don't think you can see that. Let me try with another marker. Okay, we'll try with this one. All right, a big circle, right? Oh, this marker isn't any better. I think I took all the dry markers from school. I just grabbed a handful of markers when I went to leave school that last day, and I think I grabbed all the dry ones. Okay, so this one's a little bit better. There's our clock, okay? And what number do you remember is at the top of the clock? Right, number 12. And what number is at the bottom? A 6. And on the right side is a 3. And on the left side is the 9. Do you see that? So if I do top and bottom, right and left, then I can just fill in the other numbers. A 1 and a 2, a 4 and a 5, a 7 and an 8, a 10 and an 11. Do you see that? And then I can put my little dot in the middle. And to help us in first grade when we make our clocks, it's important to remember when you put the hands on the clock to don't give them any special little fancy lines or drawings, all right? If I want to show on my clock that it is 12 o'clock, I'm sorry, if I want to show on my clock that it is 3 o'clock, I would put my minute hand and my hour hand, just like that. I don't draw any special arrows. I don't draw any special characters on there. I just make sure that my minute hand is long and my hour hand is shorter, okay? So that way I can tell that it's 3 o'clock. So maybe you can practice that a few times and then show me some different times on the clock. And underneath, how would I write the digital time for that? If you remember from kindergarten, right? 3 o'clock. Remember, these special math characters right here are the symbols for o'clock, right? And we need to put those in there, that symbol in between the numbers to show us that we're measuring time, not measuring inches, or we're not measuring with counting cubes, or we're not measuring with our tape measure. We're measuring time. And so these two little dots right here tell us that it's time that we're measuring. So you can practice that, and then I will see you tomorrow for another lesson on time. See you tomorrow, and stay well.